What's up? It's the Daily Racing Foreign Players Podcast. It's a Tuesday edition. Peter Thomas Fornatales is the DRF tournament editor. He is here, and he is chopped down a little bit. How about that?
Yeah. It's the summer plumage.
Yeah, okay.
I had kind of had enough. As the weather gets warmer,
it
gets tough.
Shed it a little bit.
Yeah. Late Saratoga. By Labor Day weekend, it'll be back resembling something like a proper beard. This is me clean shaven these days.
DRF formulator Mike Hogan, no difference. Same package. Same package.
Take the hat off.
No, well, it's up to you. I mean, and Matt Burney are here. No difference from this 2/3 of the group. Fornatel's getting ready to go out to California, and Santa Anita's got to be shedding it so we get some good sun. All in all, fellas, what's going on? Anything good?
Enjoyable weekend. Watched a lot of golf, actually. I was wondering if you were involved. I know you were a big fan.
It's one of those things that you simply can't do that. I know it's easy for me to say it, and it's the major and all that kind of stuff. In that situation, you can't blow the eagle putt so far by that you've got. The first thing I said, there's a lot of meat left on that bone. Anybody that plays golf knows what I'm talking about. Like, you can't possibly leave yourself with that putt to come back. You need to just cozy it up. And look, it kind of looked like he tried to do that. He just did it unsuccessfully. The problem now for Dustin Johnson is he's kind of becoming that sort of seconditis sort, and not necessarily in the literal term, but whenever he's gone into Sundays with opportunities to put majors to bed, he is just imploded. So, look, he's still young. He's only 31 years old, and he hits the ball country mile, but that's not a good look, man.
Nicholson was older, though, by the time he sort of put it together. He had that rep for a long time, right?
And they play very similar styles. I mean, Dustin Johnson's not nearly as risk-taking as Phil. I mean, there's a reason Phil the Thrill, but from a distance standpoint, they both hit it a very, very long way. It's one of those, when I'm watching it, we were on the couch, and I go, a three-putt is an absolute all-time disaster. And I said, selfishly, I want him to miss this one. I want him to miss the eagle and make the birdie, so there's an 18-hole playoff on Monday that I can watch. But instead, he three-jacked, and that's an all-timer. So
all the talk about the greens.
Disaster.
And it made me think about racing a little bit, too. Sort of like it's like a course bias in some way. I don't know enough about golf to know if anybody is helped by those difficult situation, the putting on broccoli line.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even so much speed. It was just that you want a true surface, and they didn't get it. I mean, whenever you see the ball bouncing, that's not supposed to happen in any sort of a professional course, let alone a U.S. Open. And they were making the joke about it, and you could even go a step farther, that you're going to have, or a step further, whatever the proper, the A or the U, whichever one, you can say that there are going to be 2 British Opens in the span of 4 weeks. So you're going to have this one, and then you get the proper Open Championship. And then the PGA is at Whistling Straits, which is another links-style sort of course. I mean, you've got, this is just such a different kind of diversion from what I'm used to with the U.S. Open. We like trees and rough that's about 5 feet deep and tight fairways. It's
so pretty on TV.
I prefer the lush green stuff. We're going to see all the burnt stuff over at St. Andrews here in 3 weeks. It is what it is. But a tough ending for that. And Jordan Spieth, look, whoever would have thunk it? I brought it up Sunday night. What were the odds if you had gone to a casino at the beginning of the year and said, "What can you give me for a parlay of a Triple Crown winner and a Grand Slam winner?" What number could you possibly?
Oh my gosh! I mean, you're talking about what, 500 more?
I would hope more.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what they'd actually give you, not the true odds.
Realistically, I mean, I think I would hope they would give you 1,000. No.
Well, the crown was the horse crown was 8-1.
Okay.
A bet that I brilliantly neglected to take, but I don't know what I mean. A golf. I mean, you got to figure. Yeah, you're putting zeros.
You have to. You'd have to. It's tough enough for a horse to win the Triple Crown, but they've got to beat.
See what it is now.
What did Farrell beat? 35 horses, 33 horses.
Yeah, like 32. Horses? Well,
he's got to beat 150 plus players again, with the exception of the Masters. But like 150 players each tournament, and it's for 4 rounds each one. I mean, I would just assume that we got to have a bigger number on that, but. Mike, how you doing? Everything good?
Doing all right, yeah.
You doing all right?
Doing all right.
All right, good. While Pete is looking up some good stuff, let's get the 4PH kind of recaps out of the way, and then we'll talk about just some other little mishmash stuff.
Looks like 25-1 right now, which
then he wins the Open and the PGA.
Yeah, which sounds way light. I mean, right?
Well, they have him listed. Last I saw was he's co-favored for the Open with McIlroy at 5.
Okay.
So it's a 5-5 parlay then.
Basically.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Seems low.
Which for me, yeah, I mean, look, I still think as good as he's playing, I don't think you could possibly take that. Yeah. I also think that
it's actually more a 5-4 parlay because you got to get your money back, right?
Is that even how it works in Vegas too? I don't really know.
I mean, if you're taking,
I know, like for us, it would be.
Right.
I was assuming the stake would be added back on.
See, but I even go back and say 8-1 on a triple crown. That's a terrible bet.
Right.
See, for this horse, I actually thought about it. I really did. I really did. I really thought about it. But 3-1 to win the Derby was too good, so I just took that.
I was gonna say, I mean, if you had just parlayed the 3 races.
We have to do that math. I wish I was. We need one of these math guys. A good math guy would have it done already.
I just feel like 8-1 on any. No matter
Depends
what.
on when, I guess.
3-1, 4-5, and 3-5.
If you'd given me 8-1 after the Derby,
well,
I'd take it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take it before.
That bookie won't be in business.
Yeah, no, right. They're not gonna be flush with cash.
Some math person who's listening on Twitter, tell us what that parlay is. 3-1, 4-5, 3-5. I have a spreadsheet that does it, but it's not on this computer.
I imagine it's got to be pretty darn close. No?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you might be right.
It's going to be a hair light, I think, but
of course, before the Derby, you have every horse running for you in theory.
Sure.
You know, for that, for that
like you say, you've only got to win 2 races.
Right.
Because you're going to get,
Right.
but then of course that's when you're panicking when that bird wins. And you go, just tear the ticket up. I got no shot.
Hey, he ran pretty well in the Preakness.
He would have been fine if the filly hadn't run, you know.
Right,
yes, if Mr. Zayat had stuck with his initial plan. Remember that story. There was talk of entering enough horses in the Preakness. This was one of Mr. Zayat's claim to fame before the recent one. He was part of sort of a coterie of owners, I think, who thought about oversubscribing the Preakness with unworthy horses to keep Rachel Alexandra on the sidelines. But in the end, cooler heads prevailed. They let the filly run, and we got that awesome Preakness.
Again, just things that make you shake. That's just stupid.
Hey, if he'd done it this year, Dorochenko wouldn't have run in the Ohio Derby.
And he didn't run last, did he?
No. I tweeted, this horse has not won in 15. He's not hit the board in 15 starts in a year, and he's won over 90 grand. If you place him where he'd fit, I don't know if he wins 90 grand. You know, he won over 28,000 for finishing 5th in the Florida Derby. It cost $500 to enter.
It's clearly part of his business plan, such as it is.
And then if he wins the Louisiana Derby, it's like total mic drop moment.
Well, we've seen that before.
Yeah. Let's get to the races. The first one was the Obeah down at Delaware Park. Lunatime runs off the page.
The other motion.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time.
She ran off the page. Illman and I were talking about it, and it's something I feel like I'm usually very good at identifying and noticing when something changes. I don't know how I just completely glanced over it, but her final work prior to the race was in 59 and change, and it was markedly faster than anything she'd ever done. There was no equipment change that we could really see, but I don't know, man. But that had to be it, the light going on, because I've never thought she was all that good, but she ran huge.
She had I didn't mention it on the pod, so I feel silly mentioning it now. I just didn't. I didn't see her, so I didn't bother mentioning it. But there was a trip in that Laurel race previous. She kind of lost her spot at one point.
It wasn't enough for that.
Well, right, exactly, and that's the thing that they say. And trip guys like us need to be conscious of this. The old saying, "There are no trips in slow races."
Right.
So you had going in. Several of those horses had run faster, speed figure wise, even than Lunatime. What did she get? An 87.
87.
So I wasn't able to be creative enough. That's one of those where you just sort of, to come up with that, that's always going to be tough for me in the all-in, pick and pray, whatever you want to call it, format. I like to think maybe continuing to go over the race with the odds board in front of you, maybe you can warm. What number did she end up going off at?
15.
Yeah. But maybe that's when you're looking, you're getting 15. You look at that last work again. You look at that trip again. Maybe you come up with a reason to take the 15s, but a couple days in advance, I just whiffed on that one.
Well, and that's why I feel like an idiot going back at it, because the dollar super paid $4,000, and I went through and played different variations of it where at one point I had her on top, I had all in fourth, and then I had 9-11, 9-11. But I had used 9-11 throughout.
Right.
So obviously,
those were your
return
keys.
ran Sea Shadow with the no show. That obviously I would have had it otherwise because I had her and 2 other horses in that top slot for one of them. But it is what it is.
Did she have an excuse?
Sea Shadow? I thought she was very wide to begin with, but I almost wonder, she ran so bad, I suppose maybe someone's going to make the argument she bounced. I wonder if she bled. She's not been on Lasix.
Let me ask you guys this. You know, another old handicapping saw when looking at trainers, why enter 2 when 1 would do? What kind of truth? You look at a result like this where you see a great trainer with a well-fancied horse in the market that doesn't run well. Meanwhile, the 15-1 wins. You know, some people, of course, and I don't think this is the case at all, but some people would say there's a conspiracy theory element at work here, with especially when this happens with Bob Baffert 2-year-olds in California. An instance like this, though, I mean, is there anything to that angle that you'd say, well, he thinks this horse belongs, and you're getting a price on this great trainer? Do you give those horses any extra consideration?
You probably should. I mean, look at Slumber. You know,
another recent example.
You know, and I think that part of the case for Lunatime, aside from okay, Graham Motion's keeping the faith. She was a lightly raced 4-year-old, relatively lightly raced 4-year-old, who seemed to be on the improve, facing some horses, some even shorter priced horses that were coming off weaker efforts. You know, and that's the time to take a stab. Of course, my approach was beat the ones coming off the weaker efforts and make a case for excusing a poor effort. I went with a 7-year-old, but often that is my approach. You know, especially if you're going to get a price like 15-1. And you know, I agree. I don't think there's any subterfuge there. I think it's just, hey, it's an endorsement from a good trainer who knows how to spot horses well.
Do you look at that factor?
The only thing that when it comes into play for me is if there's some sort of a coupled entry with 2 different riders named, and they nix one of them, because then I look at it and say they don't need to run both. They know they got the goods with the other one.
Right.
When you see you see a coupled entry and they both have the same jock name, one of them is going to scratch, obviously.
Right.
They're not going to just say that there's a different change. And if they run both, then I generally, unless it's just a scenario where they just lay over the field, which we've seen before, whether it's a return effort or whatever it is. But a lot of times I'll look forward and see if there is a coupled entry and there's 2 different horses or 2 different riders named, and they scratch one of them. And when I say coupled too, I mean same owner. I would even go with the next step where, you know, obviously we've seen some times recently where a couple entries going out with the same trainer, not necessarily the same owner. Mm-hmm. If it's specifically with the same owner, why run both of them when you think one is definitely,
you know, one is loaded? Yeah,
right.
Save the other, give the other one a fair chance as opposed to running them against.
And it doesn't always hold water.
Right.
It's just something that, you know, I take a look at it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I wonder whenever this magical moment happens where Angle Finder comes to be, if we could get data on this, because everybody, especially in California, always says that when the Baffert 8-1 wins and the 4-5 is up the track.
Did we talk about it? Someone had done like a study on Twitter, I think last year.
Of this issue?
Yes.
Well, the longer priced Baffert.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd love to see that.
It actually proves to be not necessarily factual.
Yeah.
The factual side of it is the longer priced Pletcher.
Interesting.
Yeah, that no one talks about.
Yeah. I wonder if part of it is, and it might have been the case here in Delaware too, with these, when you have a really good trainer and they have a horse that looks loaded, you just get like market enthusiasm, you know, the way that any good trainer is going to be bet in part because people are betting because it's Todd Pletcher, because it's Graham Motion. Doesn't necessarily mean they're not value, but they're going to take so much action. Right. Maybe just that one that's not the sort of master of the obvious thinking of the betting public pushes all the money towards the obvious one, and meanwhile, then you're getting inflated value on the other one. Maybe it's as simple as that.
It is possible.
Yeah, no, it's entirely possible. You picked Natalie Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? Illman and I are going to do the race.
I did notice she's running 4 days later.
Yeah, they're wheeling her back.
She's running.
Nevin's
tomorrow.
running her tomorrow as part of the $325,000 pick six carryover.
Unless she scratches. Of course,
unless she scratches, but
did.
Nevin's numbers with that move are very good.
Yeah.
Well, not dissimilar from mentor Rick Dutrow, who was always good with those wheelbacks.
Would she now? I don't know if you've gone through the race. I've already done it. Does she intrigue you there at all? Wheeling back? I think she could be lone.
Yeah, possibly. I haven't really done a deep dive on that race. There was actually a long shot that I kind of liked.
There's a couple of interesting ones in there because I think you can beat La Madrina.
Yeah, I think so too.
But did Natalie Victoria, was that her name, Natalie Victoria?
Yep.
Did she look any better? I watched the race once, but haven't really dived.
She changed leads, but she just flattened out.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Just she
but didn't look more going the right way than the wrong way compared to the first effort, which I.
Oh no, I mean I wouldn't say that.
Okay,
I mean
she needs the class relief.
Yeah,
at least.
she needs softer.
Yeah. That's a great point, though. The class relief is a game changer potentially.
It should be, and she's also got a very good record going one turn. Right. Whether it's a mile and a 16th or a mile going one turn, she's better at that. So we'll see. I mean, she's going to be interesting. That'll be part of the race today that Dan and I will do. So yeah, anything else from the Delaware race? Sea Shadow, and I've got a million things going on, so I didn't get any of my PH picks in, and I feel bad because this is the race I was 100% going to.
Right.
And I'm glad I didn't because when the board opened and she was 7-2, I said I never in a million years would touch her at 7.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
that was. I mean, we talked a little bit about how the betting might go, but I was surprised. I knew your horse would come down to from 12 to 1. I didn't think she would be that.
Yeah, we said it. I was thinking like 7.
Yeah, I was thinking half. I was thinking 6 to 1.
I surely didn't think she eventually went up at 9-2. And then joint return. The problem with her is you're always going to be at the mercy of the race flow. She ran a big race considering how slow they went early on. But unfortunately, that's kind of what she's going to have to deal with.
I loved her at Pimlico at 21 to 1. I was way against her
5-2. She ran a good race, but no dice there for her. She runs second. So Luna Time at 15 to 1 scores there.
Should we save the Ohio race for last? I feel like it's maybe I'm figuring we're going to spend more time on that than we're going to on the Santa races. If you guys don't mind.
No, fine with
me.
If
you think that's smart.
Me? The 7th at Santa was the Singletary Soul Driver. Very, very impressive. Wow.
Whistled.
Very impressive. Yeah. We said that if watching the race, as long as he doesn't get stopped, he's your winner.
Yeah.
And Gary got him out, and the race was over.
Yeah, he did a good job. This was we're going to talk about Soul Driver a little bit tomorrow, right?
Yes.
We're doing our webinar tomorrow, and we're talking about notes. And that note that I had read, we're going to use that note that I read on the podcast last week as an example of how to use a trip note to hopefully find a winner who ended up being, I mean, to me,
3.5.
That's pretty square.
That was a square price. And he wasn't even the favorite, right?
Zinvor was the favorite.
Zinvor, Dr. Zinvor from the Subway.
The two horses that I said, I don't think they're very good. Zinvor, Hero 10 All. They ran fine. They ran 2nd and 5th, but
I thought your opinion was kind of borne out. I mean, I know second, but second beaten.
Zinvor, to me, is very quickly becoming the horse that at a short number each and every time you key him 2nd and 3rd. Because he's never going to win. He's just not. Unless he gets softer. He's just not that good.
Fires, though.
And that's the thing. We said it. He runs. He just doesn't run well enough.
Southern California turf groupthink.
Boy, groupthink on Sunday. Anybody watch that?
Another second.
Jeez. And I'm watching it. He looks like he's completely beat on the far turn, though. And the fact that he keeps digging in on the inside. I thought inside was decent at Belmont on Sunday, considering the weather was a little bit wonky and whatever. But, he tried. Ran second again.
And you got a price.
7 to 1, 6
right.
to 1.
Finally get a price. Still runs second.
Yeah. But, no, look, I thought Soul Driver was very good.
Oh, yeah, by far the best in that,
Really, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think anything in here was too disappointing. Maybe All Indians, the pace setter, but he just opened up and seemed to be a little bit goofy early on. He got a half in 46, and I felt like he had no shot at that point.
Yeah, that wasn't expecting a hang on there.
Other than that,
Soul Driver was the story of the race. I mean, I haven't done the full. Maybe
I haven't gone through and looked for trip or anything like that. But Soul Driver got a 93 buyer for that big jump up,
and that fits with turf stakes runners in Southern California. He'll be probably knocking heads with Bolo and Papa Cool at some point.
I would definitely imagine Del Mar is going to be. There'll be some sort
Oceanside.
of the Oceanside, right? That's the opening day.
Opening day usually splits. 3-year-old turfers going a mile. Very exciting race on a crazy day.
I can't remember. Do you know what the restriction is? Is it for non-graded stakes winners?
Oh,
yes, usually it is.
I think
you might be right.
So this is
perfect
him.
for him.
Perfect.
The same for Papa Cool, where he's not won a graded stakes race yet.
Oh, that's right. I thought he had one, but he hasn't.
Well, and what about Bolo? Bolo's going
to be here next week.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he'll be
for the Derby or Derby.
Yeah.
Excuse
well,
me.
Look at you.
Too much
English racing.
Too much Ascot.
Come on. Where were you born?
Yeah, I think the last I knew, the plan was for him to be here to run against Divisadero and.
That's going to be a great race. That makes
color with a U.
Please don't let me do that. I do it with racing stuff once in a while, but don't let me start throwing U's around.
The
schedule.
It's only
What's
get
the
worse.
schedule for the?
It's going to get much worse this fall when I'm over there and I'm Skyping into this show. If anything you hear that's too English, please call me on. Yes. I appreciate that very much.
The Summertime Oaks just was, unfortunately, we had some scratches that kind of crushed anything for you and I. But Stellar Wind gets it done. I thought it was. Well, what did you think?
I was hoping.
Did you go with Terrace Tango?
No, I remember Conquest Curl Girl. I was hoping.
Well pronounced. Good diction.
Yeah. She got out. It looked like Talamo was sitting nice and chilly on the turn. Didn't ask her until the stretch. She just wasn't good enough. But if you boxed my 3, there's the try. I actually had a double with her. It was paying over $200. $2 double with her from Soul Driver. It's the only bet I made on the race. I had a little bit of a brief thrill, but hey, Stellar Wind, she got it done, but I don't know. I mean, it's either an indictment of her or it's an elevation of Terrace Tango.
I think
for sure.
Terrace Tango's okay.
I think she is.
See, I don't.
Really?
You think it was just a bad race?
No, I don't think it was a bad race. The difference is, I said it going into it with you guys, and I said it on live. There's something about it ever since she got done with that race at Del Mar last year as a 2-year-old. She always, I don't know that she wants to win. I know it's easy for me to.
Like, so hard when you lose by a nose, though, to say that.
How many horses have we seen that just find a way to lose?
I agree, but for me,
well, we're going to talk about one who turned the table soon here.
I don't like to. I will do that absolutely with horses who are like consistently getting beaten like a length. I see a lot of horses where I feel like they're happy to run second, like on some level. I don't see that though when you lose by so little. I thought she was game. What did the figure come back though? I haven't checked yet.
91.
Okay, so not super fast.
91. It's all right. It's
yeah.
Not great. It's a little bit below Stellar Wind's best. She's gotten a 95 in the past. Terrace Tango, she had a 90 last time. She got a 91 this time. That's the thing. And I guess we'll find out for me next time because she's going to take money wherever she shows up, and I'm going to more likely than not be against her. Because
I think this was the time, and she just didn't get it done, unfortunately, for somebody like me who bet her.
Stellar Wind at 4 to 10.
I was surprised at the exuberance in the betting here.
Oh, really?
Not me.
Yeah,
really?
No,
you thought she was legit 2 to 5?
With the scratch of the Baffert.
I mean, with the scratch of the Baffert, what
short.
was it? Ended up being a 6-horse field?
6 horse.
I thought odds on, but there's a huge difference between 3 to 5 and 2 to 5, and she was 2 to 5.
Yeah. I was surprised they didn't bridge jump her. I actually looked at the pools to,
I think, Dan brought up a good point. Her first work back was on grass.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder.
Right.
That's a
Crap.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, it's a why are you even trying her on
maybe
grass?
Foot issues.
Yeah, is she a little ouchy? Is there something wrong? Because, for a horse that just seems to be what you would assume is one of the top 3-year-old fillies, why are you even trying her on grass?
Looking at their options, because there are those 3-year-old restricted filly races, which is a chance to get a grade 1 against lesser competition, potentially. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, but maybe they just wanted to see.
I guess, but you're really pulling the plug already. You're not even going to consider Saratoga. You're not going to, you got all of the 3-year-old races up there, all the filly races. So.
It's an option, though, if things go wrong. Assuming they thought she liked it. Yeah. It just, having options isn't a bad thing. And a lot of horses do like to prep on grass and run under it. I don't know. I didn't read the explanation of it. It wouldn't be a reason I would wouldn't be like a big knock going forward, but it is curious.
Any word on why Baffert scratched Fantastic Style?
No, and I saw the night before I was looking. I don't even remember what I was looking at, and when her name wouldn't show up for an option, I said, something's not right here.
Yeah.
She's not going to run. I don't know why.
Let me fold in 12 seconds of tournament talk because, very interestingly, that race was the anchor leg on our contest on Saturday. Ken Kirkner, who chooses the races, surely wasn't anticipating the scratch,
right?
And I guess thought it would be, and timing-wise, it was just the right race to have there. But so it was an interesting position, and friend of the podcast, Basil DeVito, was in second place, primed to get his Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat, 10 cents ahead of John Fisher in third. Going into that race, short field with a 2-5 shot. Let's try to use the way back machine here. You're in Basil's shoes. Who do you play in that spot?
Wow. You're 10 cents up?
10 cents up. You got a 2-5 favorite. Legitimate legitimate odds on at 2-5. Who would you have played?
If it were me?
Yeah, you guys both answer this one. If you got to go back in time.
If I'm being completely honest, even knowing the result, I probably would have played Sheer Pleasure, who ran fourth at, she was the second choice at, almost 5-1.
Leaving yourself, you would have left yourself vulnerable to the odds on there.
Because I would have looked at it and said, what are the odds that he's going to do, something.
Well,
Mike, what would you say?
hoping to at least
I'm hoping to at least run
exacta,
second.
Right.
Because I feel like my place money is still going to probably come darn close to.
Well,
and you figure, in a sense, you might own the favorite anyway, thinking John Fisher's going to think you're playing that horse. Who would you have played? I'm just curious.
Well, on paper, Stellar Wind looked pretty unbeatable, and I think you had to make a case for her not showing up with her best, which I think maybe she didn't. She still got the work done. I probably either would have gone with my silly long shot just on the idea that she might have been loose on the lead and good enough in her third start to hold on. We hadn't seen the best of her, and maybe she hits the board. Or I would have just protected and taken the favorite. I don't know. It's tough. Tough decision.
Basil loved the favorite, or thought the favorite was the most likely winner. He was scared that if he took the favorite, that the place horse money might be greater than the win in place of Stellar Wind.
Basically, that's the reason I would have gone with Sheer Pleasure. Now I would have been wrong.
In a short field, I think in a big field, I think that would have been a valid concern. In a short field,
it wasn't far off.
How close was it in the end? I mean, remember, we're talking about 10 cents here.
$1.20.
Yeah. So, I mean...
But, I mean, I'm still going to roll the dice if I don't... But he really loved Stellar Wind?
Well, he thought she was going to win, but he did not play her.
So who did he play?
He played Sheer Pleasure.
Interesting.
But... he's still going to the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge for the reason, Matt, that you alluded to.
The guy in third thought he had.
Well, potentially. In truth, the guy in third did something very interesting. He played one of the absolute outsiders, and I didn't mention this part, but in this contest format, didn't want to make the example too convoluted for you guys, but on Saturday's format, if you win first, if you finish first, you get both BCBC and NHC.
So he wanted both?
And Roger Satina had a big lead, which is why Basil was happy to protect and play just for the BCBC seat. But John was going for the gusto, so he played a 17-1 shot there.
Did he already have a seat in anything?
I don't know. I would question the play call then.
Right.
See, I thought it made sense for two reasons. Reason one, maybe he really liked this long shot.
Well, that's one thing.
Yeah. And you have that outsized reward is something. But he runs second. That horse definitely is going to pay more. Second. I'm trying to remember who it was.
It had to be Scat Means Go.
Scat Means Go.
17-1.
That horse's place is going to be more than Stellar Wind's first. I just thought it was a really interesting dynamic, and I love these end game puzzles. I think they're really good for tournament players. Like if you play chess, I don't know if you guys ever played chess, but one thing you can do to improve your chess ability is study the end game. You know, I don't know if you've ever read books or anything, but there's whole books about just these certain situations that come up and how to play them. I think in tournaments it's the same thing. if you can learn so much just by putting yourself in the shoes of these players and following along. And of course, with the leaderboards we have on our contest sites, you have a chance to go through and see what everybody's playing.
Now,
it's just kind of fun.
More pressing would have been, and this is something that I would have had to factor in, is how far back was the guy behind third?
Well, that's another factor, absolutely.
So
Because you might both get leapfrogged.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So if it were only, if he were only 60 cents behind at the time,
We can check, actually.
that's when you start to think, well, all of a sudden, does the chalk become more reasonable?
Right. You got to go with what you think is the most likely result.
Because I can't afford allowing someone to pick her to beat me.
Right.
As much as they're probably thinking that I'm not picking her to begin with.
Right.
I can't possibly let that happen, because then you'll be sick after that.
Then it's all just game theory at that point.
Well,
They were vulnerable. They were vulnerable to the 5-to-1 shots from the player who was in fourth.
See, so
But
that's
they weren't.
that's even,
Were they vulnerable to the favorite?
well, to the chalk.
No.
See,
Okay.
so that's
So that's-
that
yeah.
makes it's no
Yeah.
question.
So then you don't play the chalk.
Right, the chalk, you chalk it out. So look, I would
I
have
mean,
done
I would have. I definitely would have played the favorite there. Yeah.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if you're vulnerable in that case to only one player, you let that player play the chalk.
Yeah, because in that situation,
And hope that-
look, if third and fourth, the favorite could have beaten.
Well, if Basil was vulnerable to John Fisher with the favorite, he did
Okay.
not have the ownership of the favorite.
Okay.
So I think what happened, though, I think Fisher was thinking that was off the table, assuming Basil was going to play it. Basil said in retrospect he felt like he should have played the favorite.
See, I don't. I think he played it the right way,
Yeah.
because I look at it and say, if third is the only one that the favorite is in play with, they're probably not going to think that you're going to go.
Right. It's great. It's this
Right.
game theory. Mike
Fourth,
said it.
though,
It's,
whenever you've got fourth involved and you're vulnerable to the fives, it's a
Yeah.
no-brainer. You're taking one of the fives.
Right.
yeah.
No-brainer, because now not only do you cover yourself with second, more likely than not, if you do run place, you get the place money, but now you've also essentially you could eliminate some. That's the other part too that not enough people think about. When you're ahead, you're trying to eliminate an option for other people behind you.
Yeah, blocking.
Blocking, where they can't pass you at that point. And that's why maybe even the way that you were going about it, that's a horse that no one in that top 3 or 4, unless they love, is going to have.
Right.
The horse that when the guy was going for the home run.
Yeah, Fisher's horse. that he
You're
picked,
pretty
the Scott
confident
Means Cup.
at that point that no one is on that horse.
Yeah, he knew he was drawing live.
You're live.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, look, that's half the battle sometimes, is being live.
And Roger Satina in first, very, very smartly, I forget which one he played, but he played one of the long shots thinking that
to
exact
block.
thing. Who
Yeah.
can get me?
Right.
Right.
I'm going to, you got to play defense in that spot.
And that's the thing. I mean, and there's so many different strategies that go into different contests, but when it comes down to it at the very end of these sorts, it comes down to you're not only your handicapping, I don't want to say goes out the window. You've gone through, you've done the work, you've identified horses you think can do whatever. Then you've got to handicap the odds about what can help me and what can hurt me. And then you got to handicap the handicapper.
The other players.
So there's at the very end of it, it becomes much more trying to project what you're going to do.
It's poker.
Yes, very much so.
Well, in a case like that, if Satina is protecting, he's protecting with a long shot, but he's likely protecting with the long shot that he feels has the biggest shot to hit the board.
Well, then
so
that's
he's
regardless
not
of
just
price.
playing numbers. Right?
Well, no, that's the thing. And then when I say that, I mean, you've gone through and you've handicapped. I can go through. I didn't like Scat Means Go. I would have gone with Roxana, who ended up, being eased. But the way I looked at it on paper, I said, she's shown that she doesn't need. Yeah, she lost the iron.
Some sort of equipment.
Yeah, lost the iron. So, but she had shown that she didn't need to go to the lead. She had won also from sitting. So I felt like at 20-1, if you needed, I even said if you needed a bomb in this situation, that's where I would go, because I know that I'm not necessarily a one-dimensional. Where Conquest Curl Girl, I thought she needed to go. It was one of those where I think in time she could prove that she can sit and pass, but until she proves it to me, I don't want to find out at the very end of the contest. So, but that's the thing. You're trying to project who you think could hit the board at a big number.
I should point out, if I was Fisher, I would have played the favorite too, hoping that Basil would think that I thought he was going to play the favorite.
See, but I couldn't put myself in that spot because then I could still be drawing dead.
Right.
It's true, but if you believe that the horse is 50-50 to win and you don't have a strong preference between the 4-to-1s, mathematically, it's a strong play.
And then I bring in the idea that the guys from behind with the place price could still beat me.
That's true.
That part I couldn't.
Though in such a part of it to me is it's such a short field. I wouldn't have worried about the place price.
I think you have to. If Mike's horse runs second, he beats you.
But I would have been pretty confident.
It was $1.20 difference right now between first and second choice. If you put in a 20-to-1 shot running second, that probably turns from $3.80 to $6
at least. Yeah.
That's where the game theory comes in, though, in terms of who I think people ahead of me are going to play.
Well, right.
I think I'm putting myself in a chance where I'm going to get my goal 50% of the time if a 2-to-5 wins. I think I take that. I think I take those odds if I'm in third.
Now, the other way of going through and kind of saving your, so you're not stressing out or freaking out about anything. If you're someone like Satina was the leader,
yes,
he was the one that was well clear. You take. If there's you go through this. I had a contest last year before I started here that I had to get I called up Mike Baychak. I said, "How do I handle this going into the finale?" There were 2 horses that could beat me, and it was plain and simple. He said, "You in the contest, you pick the shorter of the 2, and then you bet $200 or $500 to win on the longest shot. So if for some reason something crazy happens and the longest shot on the board at 30-to-1 beats you, you're not freaking out. You're still going to get something back out of it. Obviously, you won't get the thing you were trying to qualify for.
But you sometimes can get more.
But yeah, right. Or if that other horse wins, you've blocked everyone out. Sure enough, that longest shot on the board runs second by like a half length. Oh. So, I mean, it was sweating the whole way where... I mean, obviously, I would have won either way. I would have either gotten the seat to what I was playing in, or I would have cashed. But it was still like, Jesus, really? Like you don't.
That's a whole art. Once you have equity,
and second was not enough to leapfrog you with that long shot. Okay, that's good. Because that would have been brutal.
That would have been the really where I lost $500. I think I bet
you would have lost
$200.
You would have lost the cash and the seat.
You can't do if you can get middle like that. You can't make that play, in my opinion.
Right, right, and that was the thing. We were strictly looking at it from.
You were locking it.
You needed win in.
Yeah. They needed. I think I was something crazy like $70 ahead. Yeah. Like a place price wasn't going to do it. They needed to win.
Eric Moomey in Winning Contest Player has a lot of examls of using those situations.
And it could have been 70. It was like 50 because the cap is 62.
And he has plenty of stories like that's right. Obviously, had to be less than 62, but plenty of stories where the other option actually gets him more. Let's say he's playing for a $10,000 seat. And he puts 500 on a, whatever it is, 30-to-1 shot cash. Of course, your cash bet has no cap.
Right.
He's actually done better with the other option at times. He's got good stories in there if you're interested more in that.
And that's one of those things where, I mean, I was stressing, but it was really a no-lose situation where I was either going to
nice stress situation to be in.
Because in retrospect, I could have if a horse had won. I could have just gone and bought into the contest of whatever I was going to
without taking the money out of that money.
Right.
But that speaks to something about the competitive nature of being in contests.
You still want to win.
You want the money. Yeah. But you want to see the one next to your name.
And I think when I did the interview for your book, we all have got ego.
Yeah.
I mean,
you especially.
Well, that's not news to anyone that knows me.
This was a fun little unexpected diversion.
But you know what I mean, though? Like the contests, especially. There's obviously you want to win, or you want the cash, and you want whatever else that goes along with it. But you want to be the one that says, "No, I won."
Seeing your name rise up the leaderboard
awesome.
is a thrill.
Yeah.
That is sort of an added value for the contest because there's something that I don't know. You have a big score at the track. And you're around, and you tell people about it or whatever. That's not really great racetrack etiquette. Sure, if somebody asks you how you're doing, or it's your friends, that's fine. But your name's number one on the leaderboard. Just everybody sees it. They know. You don't have to. That does the bragging for you. Yeah. You get all that emotional value. It's another reason people play tournaments for sure.
Definitely.
You don't want to be the guy waiting for the train that comes up to somebody and like, "Yeah, I hit that 50-to-1 shot in the last race."
It's like, go away, pal.
Yeah, go away.
Well, like
Tell me about your losing bets.
And you don't know if that costs them something else else. They just missed out on something, or whatever it is.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things that
There
go
was
into
a
it.
story like that at Santa Anita, actually, in the first contest we ran there in March. Good chance to plug this, too. But Stephen Wells, actually, I'm pretty sure winning the tournament was his second best option, actually, at the end of the second day, because he was alive to another horse in the pick six. So it was going to be, he got 60,000 for winning the tournament. It would have been 75 the other way.
Right.
But that is just a quick reminder. We'll both be out at Santa Anita. Folks can buy into this live bank contest starting on Saturday, Gold Cup Day. Going to be a pretty cool day of racing, right?
Should be, yeah. There's a lot of good racing, but it's a 2-day event.
Yes, and the contest will go through to Sunday.
And Sunday's main event is the San Juan Capistrano, I think.
I love that
Mile
race.
and
I didn't even realize that.
mile and a
Yeah,
half.
Closing
that's
day.
so cool.
Yeah, closing day.
Yeah, it's closing day. I'll be there. Matt will be there. American Pharaoh will be there.
Yep.
Hope to see you there as well.
So we've got that coming up. But we do have one more PH race that we've got to plug through.
Oh, yeah.
The Ohio Derby. Where do we want to start?
Let's start on the great who's going to be the third choice debate.
Let's start on the third choice debate. So when we go through and look at
So
this.
I was right and I was really wrong.
I was
You
going
were
to say.
really wrong and you were really right.
Well,
Yes.
and that's just it, where we had gotten into the discussion that you thought that he would be double digits, and I said he would be more likely to be third choice than double digits. So we both essentially were right and wrong.
Yeah.
Because he was 1, 2, 3,
I said he was going to be 8-1.
He
Just
was
shy of-
fifth choice.
Yeah, just shy of 7.
And he went off at
He was.
680.
I was right in the sense that of the 4 horses that had run in the Kentucky Derby, he was the longest price of the 4.
Right. I don't think any of us thought they would be as short as they. I was
Right.
shocked.
Well, there was a crazy factor in this market. I don't know if you guys heard about this or saw me tweeting about it. But apparently, Mr. Lush was in attendance at Thistledown with half the grandstand. He's a Cleveland guy.
Well,
That's
And they
why.
bet
yeah.
with both fists.
because when we were on, and there was, I think, maybe 5 or 6 minutes to post, for the longest time, Mr. Z was around 8, War Story was around 9-2, I believe Tensender was around 9-2,
4 to
and then
1.
all of a sudden, next click, War Story is the 2-1 favorite. And we said it, well, that's got to be the connections.
Yeah.
Because they're all from the area, and they dumped a lot of money into them.
I was shocked at how cold Whiskey Ticket was. 4th choice?
And I think that really said all you needed to know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was against him, but I partly was against him because I thought he was going to be close to Divining Rod in price.
And they don't have it differentiated here. War Story and Tensender were both 3.4 to 1. I thought the most disappointing, with the exception of Whiskey Ticket, that was just a complete debacle. I thought Divining Rod was disappointing.
It was disappointing, and I don't know if they need to make a change with the rider or what's going on here. But horse and rider looked kind of overmatched to me going into the stretch, and I don't know what's going on there.
Leipru had to move into the far turn. He made that big move down on the inside. We questioned immediately why Joe Bravo left the rail open for Divining Rod and Leipru to go through, and you know what? Obviously, it was the right call because Mr. Z dug in. But I thought if Divining Rod was the horse I thought he could be, and this is going to end up, we got to wheel this back real quick. I guess now looking at that Lexington, you've got Fame and Power, you've got this horse, and then you've got Donworth, who I don't know if you guys watched.
Yeah, he
his
looked
race.
good.
Well, he broke the track record in hand.
Looked really good.
I mean, if that's what he is now, I think Donworth could be a player. Jim Dandy time. Now I question, do you bring this horse back to what he probably has wanted all along?
Well, so you have to figure out what this race means. Is it perhaps a regression from what we all thought was a pretty solid effort in the Preakness, running against the best horse in
three-year-old.
the best 3-year-old at least that he's likely to face this year? And if it's a regression and maybe he moves forward back, then okay. But I mean, ultimately, I've talked about it on here. I mean, his future might be on turf.
I think we all agree about that. I'd still give him another chance, though. It was just something about it looked weird.
and-
It was a weird race, and the other trip that I thought was just bizarre was the far right trip. I still don't know what happened. He's in a great position coming into the turn. You blink your eyes, and he's 3 lengths back. And I haven't seen the head
I just
on.
don't think he picked his feet up.
You see, watch the tape and watch that incident and tell me something weird didn't happen.
I'll have to go back.
Yeah, check it out.
Lost his footing.
Something happened. That's I have not heard any official explanation of it, but I would give him another chance too.
Yeah,
In the right spot.
He's a good horse, you know. Of
I
course.
just look at it strictly from the numbers side of it, and outside of the top 3, I don't think anybody ran.
You're right.
Yeah, I just think he had a
third
big.
was
I think
almost
he had a
5
trip
clear.
excuse. I think he had a big trip excuse.
Okay, we'll have to take a look.
I mean, granted, he did no running thereafter, but it was just he looks like he's in the race. You know, he's this horse he's beaten 4 times this year, wins the race, and he has this weird incident on the inside. I would not give up on him in the right spot, especially if this doesn't become a talking point and everybody just thinks he's not that good. Then maybe we get a little price.
Get a bigger number.
And Divining Rod too. Like there's not a lot that I see on the tape to say here's the excuse. I just would give him one more chance. I can't explain it, but it didn't. It was not the good version of that horse.
Mm-hmm.
Thought 10 Sender ran well.
Sure did.
You know, he's another one that he could be a nice. I believe he's a New York bred, and he could end up in the
he is New
grand
York bred,
scheme
isn't
of
he?
things. He could probably take advantage of a lot of those sort of New York bred stakes, whatever there are. Maybe at the year end, you're targeting a race like the Empire Classic.
Would you think Jim Dandy though? I mean, he ran well enough to maybe.
Yeah,
think
I
about
would
stepping up there.
imagine they probably try. And then Dan and I said it, and this may be, call it for what you will, I feel like this may have been the worst thing that could happen to Mr. Z, where
I agree.
he wins a really good race, but now he'll be in the Jim Dandy.
Yeah, he's just going to keep on going. Hey, I was wrong. I said he needed a break and cut back. Mr. Lucas, you were right. I was wrong. But going forward, I'm not sure it's the best thing for the horse.
But then I said, now I've got I'm already plotting out the score, right? I'm plotting out the score that he's going to run in the Jim Dandy. He's going to get pounded. He'll get humbled. And then everyone's going to say, well, he's still going to go to the Travers. And then Wayne pulls a fast one, and he cuts him back to 7 in the King's Bishop, and he's 15-1. And I think all along he's wanted 7.
I would bet him under those circumstances.
Yeah.
That's
we'll see, but a gutsy horse. I just love the fact that he tries each and every time.
Yeah, I mean, come on, that's amazing. Just as somebody who's admired that horse, I just feel bad because I think I said on this very show this was a horse that has a shot to win some minor derby somewhere, and then I experienced Mr. Z fatigue, and I got off him. I wanted just a little, just not a big, but just a little break. Didn't need it. Didn't matter. I was wrong.
But then this is a prime example of what makes it so difficult with PH, because we're on here Friday, and I say based on of the longer shots, I would probably lean toward War Story or 10 Sender. Well, they both end up going off at less than 3.5 to 1.
Yeah.
And accordingly, based on the odds on here on Saturday, so Mr. Z at the price, that's because he's not that far off. These other horses won; they shouldn't be so short. Whiskey Ticket was a pitch just based on how cold he was, and I think we all thought.
Well, the more I watched that tape of the previous race, the less I liked it.
Well, the Hawthorne race is a disaster.
Yeah.
It's not very good.
Ugly.
The form has just come back awful.
Did you notice on that
Conquest
tape?
Curlinate ran okay.
That's the only one.
Yeah,
And he beat him by a nose.
Right.
So
Did you notice on that tape? If you watched in the gallop out, Pedrosa cracks him with the whip like an 1/8 of a mile past the wire.
Really?
Yeah, it's very strange.
No, I can't say
It's
I saw
very
that.
strange. I don't know what was going on there. Anyway, I didn't like the horse, but yeah, you're right. He wasn't. I was sort of came into the race saying, let's get him at 2 to 1 out of the exacta. Well, not so fast.
Right.
He's the 4th choice.
Yeah. And by the way, another superfecta screw up from me in this race.
don't
Here we
even
go.
don't even.
I key
Don't even.
Mr. Z in all the top 3. I only used 10 Sender 3rd and 4th.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
You had,
I don't know
one
how.
too like that?
I didn't even play the super. The only thing I played was a very, very small try of. I did two plays. I think I spent $10 on the
Good
race.
on you, by the way, for picking him in PH.
Thank you.
Oh, you had him on top of the
Yes.
bench? I didn't realize that.
My only play was an exacta box of Mr. Z and Divining Rod.
Ooh.
And I did a tri-key of Divining Rod over 10 Sender and Mr. Z.
Oh, boy.
So you had the 3.
Yeah. I put all 3. My order in PH was Mr. Z, Divining Rod, 10 Sender.
It's tough to
Hey, did you notice Ten Sender's older brother won on the over the weekend too? AP Indian.
He did, yeah. That was a very, I'll call it a workman-like performance.
He's a good horse.
He's a good horse. He's not a graded stakes sort, but he can make you a lot of money for Delacour and company. So those are the 4 PH races. Do we have anything we want to talk about before we wrap up?
Let's talk about the Ascot a little bit.
Yeah,
okay.
We can use Divining Rod as the leaping off point.
Well, no, I just thought it was interesting. We were both. I just thought it was hilarious because you and I were both in the exact same conversation but on the same side of same conversation with completely different people. And what got me going was somebody saying, "Oh, I wish I could remember the exact phrase." It was like that the win of undrafted proves that.
That we belong.
That I want to get this exactly right because I don't want to do a disservice to the people I was talking to because they made passionate points and I respect that even though I didn't happen to agree. But they were saying that it shows that UK turf horses and Irish turf horses are not vastly superior to ours. And I said something. I was snarky. I said, please keep betting with that opinion, because it's my belief that while on our best day, some of our horses can hang, especially under favorable conditions like our racing. I mean, Mr. Speaker does beat Adelaide occasionally. But that generally speaking, there's still, when you're talking about a mile and farther and you're talking about 3-year-olds and older, those horses are vastly superior. And I think all you need to do is look at some of the ones who struggle over there, win one race over there and then come here and are immediately competitive in our graded stakes to see the difference in quality. But it is fair to say that when it comes to sprinters, when it comes to 2-year-olds, the playing field has become a lot more level in recent years. And I say none of this to take anything away from Undrafted's race. It was awesome, and I mean, I didn't mean to denigrate. I just feel like there's a difference between 2-year-old races and sprint races and the typical, mile/further grass races. What was your chatter on that?
No, I mean, it's very much the same, where I said, I think it's laughable that people are making the comparison that our horses, well, maybe we're not nearly as bad as they are. And I go, no. Like, just because a horse wins a race, and Wesley Ward, hats off, fantastic meet, but he has been so far ahead of the curve. He's a pioneer with this sort of thing, where he realizes, one, you're essentially in those sprints getting their second-rate runners. So any of ours who have any sort of ability, they can probably hold their own over there because they just don't focus on turf sprints. All their bread and butter is in, like you say, 8 and longer. And then the babies. If you can run them off their feet, do it. And he's got the right formula for that. I just think, the idea, and my bigger thing was that the real races, and I'm not trying to disparage a race like the Diamond Jubilee or anything like that, but like Black Caviar. I know she wasn't crazy right to the top all the time, but I mean, she had speed. Speed kills over there. In the real races, I just, like you said, and I feel like Main Sequence is the ultimate example, where he just gets pounded time and time again over there. He comes over here, he gets weaker competition in Lasix, he turns into a Horse of the Year candidate. He loses the Lasix and goes over and faces the same horses that he had been getting beaten up on in Europe, some of the horses that he beat here in the States, and gets pounded again. So, I mean, they're second-rate horses. They'll come over here. The one that I said from last year that I thought was a true Group 1 quality horse that just didn't fire and ran awful was Toronado. I thought he was the only one. The rest of them, Brown Panther is not one of their best horses. He's not. No. Keep in mind, he wasn't supposed to run the Breeders' Cup. He was supposed to run up at Woodbine.
Right,
and he freaked
scratched,
out.
yeah.
Right, and they scratched him, and they said, we'll run. That's all you need to
anyway.
know. Well, we're here. We'll run in the Breeders' Cup. I mean, you look at other ones, and I said, the argument was made that, well, they're still group horses. I go, well, yeah, but so Imagining's also a Grade 1 winner. He's not, though. He's not a Grade 1 horse. He's not. We've gone over this. It's just
similar to the argument we've had about Grade 1, what a Grade 1 animal is, Grade 2 animal.
I feel like if their proper good ones came over, we'd be in trouble in a major way. I mean, you go back and you look at some of these other horses that have won big races. I just have to go back to the race from Belmont a couple weeks ago, the day before the Belmont Stakes, the to New York.
Sure.
When Stephanie's kitten was in there. Waltzing Matilda had lost 10 in a row, and she was losing in listed stakes over there. She wasn't even in group stakes. And I know she ran in a couple of them. The race prior at the Curra, I think she was in a group 2 in a 4-horse field, and she ran 4th.
The form was terrible.
It was terrible. She comes over here, and she beats our best. I mean, you know, that's the only thing I'll say is like there is a big chasm between our best on grass and their best on grass. Yeah. And guess what? Most of the time, our best on grass are their garbage that they send over here, and they take advantage because they see that it's softer competition. Where do you stand?
If I may, I'll make 2 small counterpoints.
All right.
One, I think, and this was a 10 furlong race, I believe. Miss Temple City ran a pretty strong 4th, completely dismissed in the UK market. If Lady Eli were in that race, she would have been a player.
Well, and I made the argument.
She's a freak. I agree.
But you said our best and their best.
But no,
yeah.
She
is our best.
But
I'm just saying. That's my counterpoint.
She literally, I think, I made the comment, I think she's a once in a sort.
Because in general, I agree. And the other counterpoint I'm going to make is the reason why. If you want to win money, you want to win the most elite races in Europe, you want a horse that's going to go long on the turf.
100%.
Okay? You want that in America. You want not super long, but middle distance on the dirt. Okay? And use a horse like Divining Rod as an example. Won a non-listed $500,000, or finished third, finished close up, could have won the Ohio Derby. When he's bred up and down for turf. Okay? There's no reason to move him to turf unless he craps out on dirt, because you're going to have many more opportunities to win much more money and stand for a lot more here if you're a successful dirt horse. Over there, it's the exact opposite. The only way you come to America is if you crap out against the best. And so I think it's a matter of, you know what I'm saying, Main Sequence as an example. Main Sequence wouldn't have come over if he wasn't continually...
The Breeders' Cup is an exception to what you're saying.
Right. I was going to say, and I think
day in, day out.
The Breeders' Cup and...
I'm saying as, you know...
But I mean, even...
Campaign.
Right.
But I guess the bigger thing for me, though, is they're really good ones recently that come over. They don't even run on the grass. They run them in the Classic, on the dirt.
Well,
again,
either way...
Economics.
Yeah,
but that's my point, though. Yeah. That, I mean, if they ran on the turf...
Oh.
Look, if a horse like, and I know that there's, if Saki, the year he won the Arc, had run in the turf rather than the Classic, when he almost won the Classic, are you telling me he's not going to win the turf?
You would figure he would have beaten Scirocco.
And what is that, in a 2.5 week turnaround or something like that? I mean,
that
that's
year
the
was
other thing
tight.
to keep in mind. I understand that, you know, we can say, well, you know, when they come over here or we go over there, we've got to deal with the shipping. But, like, most of the time when those horses come over here for the Breeders' Cup, they're coming off of, like, 2-week layoffs. There's a lot to throw at a horse.
It's often an afterthought, and they still do well.
Right.
If they campaign for that race...
Miss Temple City, I mean, that was on a proper month off. Mm-hmm. She had run on the Preakness undercard, and she ran a great race. And that's why I agree completely. I think if Lady Eli was there, she could have won.
Yeah, sure.
The difference is, I mean, let's keep in perspective. We are over the moon about an off-the-board finish.
Well,
I mean, come on.
I look at it in terms of the focus. You know, I mean, just look at, like, basketball players versus soccer players, okay? Our basketball players will crush Spain's basketball players because that is much more of a focus for us in the U.S. But their soccer players will crush our soccer players. It's as simple as that, you know? I mean, and I think that's
some of what's going on.
Right.
But we weren't arguing, I don't think, so much that, just as I mean, to me, what got me is I wouldn't just, I can't take a 2-year-old win and a sprint win as evidence that we're suddenly on a par. I think they are vastly superior.
And I guess using your little piece there, like the arguments, it surely sounded like they were making the argument saying, well, the Spanish basketball players are just as good as the American basketball players.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't speaking for them.
But I mean,
just saying
that's using that analogy. Right. That's certainly
that we're not vastly. The exact argument would be that we're not vastly superior.
I think in general,
unless you're Power Marc Gasol or Jose
but
Calderon.
There you go.
They're interesting.
You're going to have a couple that are all right.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Lady Eli.
Sure. There are examples, but as a whole, as a generality,
not as good.
Right.
Not as good.
And I'm exactly with you. I'm just perhaps taking a little bit of the other side where
No, I think
it's
you've done a
not
good job
so
representing.
extreme
Yeah, right.
as, you know.
No,
one would make
and
out.
you know what? And we can even just use those guys as an example. You know, we're saying that when we go over and they spot them in the right place, whether it's a 2-year-old race or it's a sprint,
Right.
the same thing. I know that there have been, you know, whether Rubio or Calderon or any of the other guards, but really the two best Spanish players right now are the brothers, and they're both big men. I mean, there are no big men in the NBA. You have Marc Gasol and you have Pau Gasol. I mean, that's, you know, obviously there's the other guys, but like they're specialized guys are the ones that are taking advantage and doing well amongst.
So they're the sprinters.
The sprinters,
Yeah, right.
2-year-olds.
They're the 2-year-old sprinters that come over here.
Filling a void,
Yeah.
identifying and filling a void in the market.
And again, that's what Wesley
Ward has done that
Credit
to a
him.
T.
My God.
And wasn't it great? I loved all the attention. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to dive in 100%, but I loved all the attention Ascot's gotten. To me, Wesley Ward gets credit for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, whenever, because I think for the longest time it was just kind of an afterthought. But then once we had one of our guys go over there,
People
and
start to
have
see how
success.
awesome it is. It's just,
Yeah.
it's such an exciting event.
It led to discussions on Twitter that I got pulled into about DRF making PPs for your.
Oh my goodness.
Which
That's for another day.
my point and what I'll say here, and the only thing I'll say is I would love if someone made DRF style PPs for Euro races, just not DRF, because it's way too much time.
Yeah,
and
I
effort.
would just like to see what we do you can't make fractions and speed figures. Cost is tremendous, but I do wish there was some way to just create PPs like when we have for shippers here. You know, they've done this some
Well-
years for the ARC. You'll see a DRF PP, and every horse will look like a shipper does here. So at least you get a better sense of the running lines.
I
and-
believe that's the data we get from Equibase. Oh.
Hi, guys.
I still think for me, I need that DRF style
Sure.
PP. It's like a language that I want to read. I don't want to look at anybody else's.
Yeah.
I wish there was a DRF, even if it didn't have the splits and the figs. That's just me.
Yeah, so I thought this was good little show. to
Yeah,
kick off the
fun.
week.
Fun. We went way down the rabbit hole in terms of game theory. I didn't expect that, but that was a great conversation.
You guys have a webinar tomorrow?
We do.
Where do folks sign up for that, Mike?
Well, there should be a marquee at drf.com. Just look for it. It's we'll tweet it out as well. I've actually created and will tweet the webinar schedule. We've got one essentially every 2 weeks now through the end of the summer. So, or at least through around right before Labor Day. So,
Cool.
So we'll be talking about notes and charts.
Notes and charts tomorrow.
Should be cool.
Yep.
If you're watching this is going to be after the race, the DRF Live on Wednesday. Dan and I will be on. This will be going on during that $320,000 Pick 6 carryover at Belmont, so you're going to want to get involved. That's on DRF Bets. For the rest of the week, are you guys doing the pod on Friday?
We got to figure this out.
We will
Or
figure
are we
something
doing it
out.
on Thursday? We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
If you're
Figure it out.
traveling out
I'm traveling Thursday, so
I'm
if we
out
do
Friday,
anything
so-
Thursday, we can't do that.
Right.
I could do Friday from there, or it could be Mike and replacements for us.
Could be a couple of
Maybe
replacements.
We may never get back on the show.
That
Yeah.
might be it.
Yeah.
This is
Pip-ya.
what was the Keanu movie? The Reeves movie was the replacements, right? The NFL player.
That's right. That's right. The replacements. Not to mention the band.
I don't know the band.
You
Oh, you're
should.
missing out.
You
Good
should.
stuff.
You really
Good
should.
stuff. They just broke up again.
Oh no. Well, we got multiple breakups. That's not good. Anything else to add before we leave?
May you win all your photos.